ekphrastic is described as a vivid, often dramatic, verbal description of a visual work of art, either real or imagined. According to the Poetry Foundation, an ekphrastic poem is a vivid description of a scene, or more commonly, a work of art. Join me as I take you through a narrative journey of Salvador Dali's paintings and the artist himself.
Hi, welcome everyone.
Hello.
So, Dalí once said, "Those who do not want to imitate anything produce nothing." 2 years ago, I started working on a project. On a visit to the Tate Modern, I saw a Dalí masterpiece on display. It was then that I decided to pay homage to him and his work by putting a selection of his paintings into words and verse. And here we are. Salvador Dalí was born on the 11th of May 1904 in Figueres, Spain. Dalí created 717 pieces of surrealist art. We're going to look at just a very small selection of these that have resonated with me over the years and when writing the book. It's time to open your mind to the world of the surreal. The persistence of memory. Time comes back, it haunts us, it daunts us with memories. Memories deemed lost, they return, they yearn for our remembrance. Hands ticked, long and short, in newfound thought as one is played, again and again. Shiny and golden, now I am beholden by the hands of time, while this memory plays on repeat. So this is probably the most famous and recognisable paintings by Dalí. Dalí had a thing for clocks, especially the melting clocks. These feature predominantly within a selection of his paintings. However, this painting for me is probably the one where it's shown the strongest. The melting clocks within the paintings have been described as symbolising the erratic passage of time that we experience while dreaming. Like when you wake up thinking it's earlier or later than it actually is. The Burning Giraffe. Ablaze in the shadows, lost in the background, darkness ensues and covers the ground. Unnoticed and lost in a world now blind, orange flames rise high as I employ to find me still standing tall, proud and resigned to the fate that is my eventual demise. My cries and tears are stinging blurry eyes. My body suddenly falls, my soul gracefully flies. 2. Back pain soars through my hips to my brain. I'm being pulled roughly backwards in an arch, my head twisting in profound agony, suffering and becoming distorted in darkness. I am empty. The drawers of my being have been opened, and my innards have been revealed to everyone. Secrets not safe. Oblivious I have become to everything around me. That a burning giraffe escapes my attention, smouldering into the darkness. Within this painting, Dalí makes use of his connection and shows his affection to his friend Sigmund Freud, especially when he is known to say, "The only difference between immortal Greece and our era is Sigmund Freud, who discovered that the human body, within which in Greek times was merely Neoplatonical, is now filled with secret drawers only to be opened through psychoanalysis." I personally like how this painting has so much going on within it, but so much that I had to tell it from two varying perspectives. It definitely encompasses the dreamlike nature of surrealist art, which I've tried to mimic within the imagery contained within the poem. The face of war. Their faces are etched and sewn into the fabric of its dark and diseased skin, their names forgotten and lost to the all-consuming darkness within. The monster, the beast that is found, has been rudely awakened, dulling away the brightened sound of the living being securely fastened, hair shaved away, leaving it bare as it observes the conquered around. The question being asked is, how is this fair as death seeps through war-torn ground? Alas, blind ignorance to the warnings of past events that cruelly devastated the world before, leaving it yearning for life and peace to be demonstrated. Instead, the cloud is The cloud of death creeps slowly and covers everything it sees and traces, from the people on high to the very lowly, anguish and pain on their faces, their light and hope fading into nothingness. This painting was created in 1940 in California. It's therefore logical to assume that this was done during response to the Spanish Civil War rather than the Second World War. Dalí's graphic visuals in this painting lends itself to the dark and distressing imagery of war. And the use of repetition between the stanzas lends itself nicely in giving the devastation of war a sense of realism and emotion. The Sacrament of the Last Supper. Cleansing my spiritual self around a table of friends, I baptize myself within 7 vials of wine consumed. My confidence has been ordained by the Almighty. Anointed as the Son of God, I sit and digest myself, paying penance for the sins of the human race. Now I am married to my Father above. The meal ends, heads bowed, as I transcend to destiny. Religion was a mixed bag for Dalí. His mother was a devout Catholic, however his father was a staunch atheist. So you can imagine that caused some kind of conflict. However, this painting was created after the first atomic bomb was dropped at the end of the Second World War. This is when Dalí started experimenting with different techniques and different symbolism, different imagery, and with religion in general. For this poem, I looked at the 7 sacraments of the Catholic faith: baptism, confirmation, Eucharist, penance, anointing of the sick, marriage, and the holy orders. And I looked at how the Son of God would incorporate this within a meal with his friends. Girl at the window. She looks out the open window. As the salty sea air fills her nostrils, she sees the sun brightly glow as her arms rest on the windowsill. The hills in the distance call to her, saying her name over and over again, while grey clouds roll over the shore. Entranced in place, she does not stir. Suddenly, it starts to heavenly rain, absorbed by the scene's melodic law. So I did this one in the form of an English ode, which I'll explain a little bit more in a second. So Dalí loved his summers in Cadiz, which I think it's in the north part of Spain. And when he was there, he was free from the confines and restrictions of school and education in general. He could there be free, he could be creative, which he wasn't really allowed to do otherwise. And this painting is different from any other that Dalí painted. It's classical and less dreamlike than any other paintings. He uses traditional form and techniques in this painting. It shows his craftsmanship and expertise in another genre of art. I used the form of an English ode, as I mentioned earlier, to mirror the traditional feel of the painting and to create a realistic imagery within the piece as well. Metamorphosis of Narcissus. Is this my hand I see before me, floating from a pool enigmatically? But wait, it's different, distorted, discoloured and misshapen from what I see when I look down. It does not feel like me at all. But I cannot help but stare at it, as others go on blindly living everyday lives, bursting with unfulfilled satisfaction. The water is muddied, trodden by the wretched feet of difference. Watered footprints echo in the sand, as each foot walks through my thoughts, while I ponder about the image before me, reflecting and shimmering the change in me. So according to Greek mythology, Narcissus was the youth of great beauty who loved only himself and broke many hearts. The gods punished him by letting him see his own reflection in a pool. He fell in love with it, but discovered he could not embrace it and died of frustration. Relenting, the gods immortalised him as the Narcissus, which is the daffodil flower, which you can probably see on the nearest hand towards me, right at the top. Dalí used this story to produce this painting that aimed at retelling the narrative in a hallucinatory and delusional way. For years, this has been my favourite piece of Dalí. During my time at school, I chose this piece and Dalí to imitate. I reproduced this piece on a piece of A3 paper, and using colouring pencils. It took me about 8 to 10 hours to do, and it's also the piece that sparked the inspiration to produce the book. So yeah. Portrait of my father. Stern-faced, poised and fixed, rocking on a chair, rocking back and forth, sitting in a chair transfixed. A twitch by the eyes tick as he considers what's in store. Stern-faced, poised and fixed. Pipe in hand, tobacco mixed, feet scuffing dust upon the floor, sitting in a chair transfixed. White shirt, nothing risked, his tobacco tightly secured. Stern-faced, poised and fixed. Greying hair added to the list of the aging man that I see before, sitting in a chair transfixed. The curl of his tight lips twist as he remembers a lost thought, stern-faced, poised and fixed, sitting in a chair transfixed. Dalí's mother, Philippa, died when he was just 16 years old. He was devastated by the loss of his mother. His father married his deceased wife's sister, so his aunt. This did nothing to endear him to his father, although he did respect his aunt. He and his father had a tumultuous relationship at best. Over the years, they battled over many different issues. So with this painting, or this poem, I wrote it as a villanelle, and the use of the repetition within the poem was used to reinforce Dalí's perception of his father, stern and stoic, unemotional and detached. What time of cannibalism? As summer draws its end, a new beginning approaches, grey in outlook and bleak in its assured countenance, awaiting the arrival of the darkness and the cold. It reveals its plans for the end of the penultimate season. Winter is coming for certain. Grey in outlook and bleak in its assured countenance, awaiting the arrival of the darkness and the cold. It reveals its plans for the end of the penultimate season. Winter is coming for certain. Awaiting the arrival of the darkness and the cold, it reveals its plan for the end of the penultimate season. Winter is coming for certain. Revealing its plans for the end of the penultimate season, winter is coming for certain. Winter is coming for certain. As you can see, this painting has a lot going on with it. It's very, very extremely busy. There's lots going on. Because there was so much happening, I had to pick a route to go down, as the poem would lose its direction and impact with it being so busy. For this poem, I was inspired by an extremely talented contemporary pianist called Karim Kamar, who played a piece where he would repeat the initial group of notes he just played again and again, but each time he would add some more. I replicated this within this poem, but in the opposite way. Each stanza repeats itself, but each time 2 lines are removed. I call this a loop poem. This creates an interesting effect, especially with the subject matter. It gives the illusion that autumn is digesting itself into winter, so quite surrealist in its construction. The 3 ages. 1. Old age. Bones bowing, mane mellowing, years taking their toll. Measured movements, speech slurred, I think before doing. Tangled thoughts, muddled minds, struggling for answers. Crooked column, stumbling steps, cane supporting. 2. Adolescence. Towering above with an assured posture and a straightened spine. Youthful exuberance surrounds my aura, striding with poise. I survey my surroundings, confident, ambitious, ready to take on the world. 3. Infancy. Arm before leg. I must remember arm before leg. Inch by inch my body moves, inch by inch. Pull, not push. Clawing, crawling. Pull, not push. I'll go back with you. So within this painting there are references to his home at Port Legat, Catalonia, Spain. Given this image, each viewer is given the opportunity to see himself, either as old age, as adolescence, or in infancy. In this painting, I like how Dalí has incorporated, but still kept separate, stories and personalities of the 3 ages. As I showed you, there's old age, adolescence and infancy. It was clear as soon as I saw the painting that I would split these into 3 sections so that I could effectively tell their story of each age, just like DALÍ did within the painting, and capture their personalities. Celestial coronation. I dance on the moon as stars shoot from the roots of its craters. My defining moment approaches. I am dressed for it in full glory. Meteor showers explode above, serenading my entrance to celestial royalty. My defining moment approaches. I'm dressed for it in full glory. Protected by the glinting armour supplied by angels sent to guide me. My defining moment approaches. I'm dressed for it in full glory. Focusing and planning for the details of mine and my line's spiritual reign. My defining moment approaches. I'm dressed for it in full glory. What's striking about this painting is its spirituality and its mystery. The use of the spikes working in conjunction with the softness of the angelic structures is designed to make us stop and think, which is extremely powerful. I like the repetition of the spikes within the piece and have tried to replicate this within the stanzas of the poem. The poem looks to tell the story of the coronation of a spiritual being. DALÍ. You perceive shapes and objects, form them into the narrative that you explore within the construction of your works of art. Form them into the narrative, the characters you have built, construction of your works of art, displaying your true persona. The characters you have built tell obscure, surrealist stories, displaying your true persona. Scenes depicting your true self. Tell obscure, surrealist stories that you explore within the scenes depicting your true self. You perceive shapes and objects. DALÍ said, the fact that I myself at the moment of painting do not understand my own pictures does not mean that these pictures have no meaning. On the contrary, their meaning is so profound, complex, coherent, and involuntary that it escapes the most simple analysis of logical intuition. I chose a pantoum for that poem on DALÍ, as it reflects DALÍ's character and his painting style. It's random and repetitive, but equally obscure and surreal. For me, it sums up DALÍ in a perfect way, as a structure for a poem. Thank you. I'm going to open it up to the floor for any questions, anything you want to talk about. I'm here, I will answer questions. Cool. Any questions? Yeah.
Were you quite artistic at school? Did you do poetry at school, or was it like something you did later on after?
Okay, so the question was I quite artistic at school? Was I creative?
You mentioned your painting.
Yeah.
I didn't realise you did.
Yeah, so I did a bit of painting at school. Well, it wasn't more painting, it was colouring pencils. But I did like to draw. But it wasn't on the same, obviously, level as someone like DALÍ or that kind of way. I just like to be creative, really. And yeah, I kind of always liked to write. Always had a pen and paper or pencil and paper. So yeah, that kind of came naturally. Probably more naturally than drawing. But I had a go.
Is it spontaneous? Do you, when you're writing a poem, is it, do you just kind of go for it and then rework it, or what's your kind of working style when you're writing poetry?
Yeah.
It sounds quite natural. It sounds to me like it's a natural response to something.
Yeah. So a lot of my poetry tends to be free verse.
Yeah.
So things just let it flow. But with this book, with DALÍ's book, the DALÍ book, I tried to be a bit more creative. I kind of tried to challenge myself a lot more in what I did. And that's where I was trying different styles, different forms. I tried to push myself to the limits basically with this one. Which, I think it's worked quite well. It was a lot more structured than what I would normally do. Normally, just let it flow. Or if there's a form or style that I like, then I'll try and follow that.
What's next?
Good question. So I've got a couple of projects I'm working on. The cover for my next book is being revealed next week. So the next collection I'm going to be doing is called Roots, and it's more personal to me. It's telling stories of family members that I've heard all through, loads of stories, memories from me, memories from my grandmother, memories from my dad's side of the family, my mum's side of the family. There's even poems about pets. There's got a bit of everything in there, but very, very, very personal, the next one. And I'm also working on another project, which is again related to another passion of mine, which is Dungeons and Dragons. So I'm working on a new collection called That's How I Roll, which is aimed at people who like D&D and who like to geek out like I do. But yeah, that's kind of my next project I'm working on. Any other questions? No worries, I've got. So, yeah,
Sorry,
go for it. Yeah.
what drew you to DALÍ's work in particular? Like,
So many things. So I like the colours, I like the imagery that he does, the different things that he tries. I like the fact that no two pieces look the same. I like the fact that he tries to do different things. There's quite a few pieces, like The Face of War, that can be deemed as political, but he himself has always said, I'm not political, I stay away from politics. My art is just commenting. So it's just literally portraying what's happening. So it's just showing a scene rather than sort of making a comment, physical comment. But I think there's some of them that are quite powerful in their own right.
do you think he, when you say he wasn't political, do you think he comes across neutral in his pictures, or do you feel like he has a standpoint? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I
think
don't.
he succeeded in being neutral within his
Yeah, I don't think he comes across as neutral in his paintings because he likes to comment, but I think he also likes to have a range of views. So the founder of the Surrealist movement, Andre Breton, he was known to have quite a few arguments with him, because Andre Breton was very political. He wanted the Surrealist movement to be very political and to make statements and to be very active in that scene. Whereas Dalí was just like, no, this is about creativity. It's about, expression. It's not about sort of, getting involved in politics. That for him wasn't what he wanted.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I'd just like to say thanks for coming tonight. It's been a pleasure to talk to you and share my work and words with you. I hope you've been inspired by what you've seen or heard this evening, and I wish you all a pleasant journey home. There are books for sale at the end, which I'll be hanging around to sign if you wish. And the bar is also open downstairs, so let's have a drink, let's mingle, and let's just have some fun.
Thank you.
Oh, and apologies for all the technical issues at the start.
No problem.
That was Dalí's intuition.
Yeah.